everyone, Lucamus Prime here, so it is time for the next episode of my series, Old is Better Than New. And in today's video, I'm going to be covering what is one of my favourite movie franchises of all time, where I strongly believe the old in that franchise is much better than what we're getting today for that franchise. Well, recently because the latest installment was 3 years ago, or this year, when it was released. And this is a franchise which I like to regard only as a movie trilogy. And this is one of my favourite franchises of all time, and definitely a franchise I've always loved since I was really young, and always will when it comes to the 3 films. And that, of course, is none other than the trilogy of The Matrix. So, for those of you who are not aware, when it comes to my thoughts on the franchise then, so here is what The Matrix means to me. So, I absolutely love The Matrix. I always have done and I always will. But I'm only, of course, talking about the old Matrix content. So, when I was really young, I was introduced to, of course, the first movie, which I, of course, have here on Blu-ray. And this is one of my favourite films of all time. I think it's an absolute timeless masterpiece, and in my opinion, one of the best films ever made. And I'm also here as well, it's very revolutionary as well, because it's introduced lots of things which will become common features of later films. For example, of course, the famous bullet time. And I think it helped to popularise the genre which is now known today as cyberpunk, because it of course involves a computer simulated world, and of course the human resistance's attempts to stop the machines. So I definitely think this film is an absolute masterpiece, and is one of the best films of all time, and most definitely my favourite film in the franchise, and my favourite film of the year 1999 as well. So when I was first introduced to that film, my mind was absolutely blown, and I definitely regard it as one of the best films of all time I've ever seen in my life. Then, after that, I was then introduced to the 2 sequels, and the first of which, of course, was The Matrix Reloaded, released in 2003. I saw this film, and compared to the negative reviews that the 2 sequels got, I personally love this sequel a lot. I mean, sure, it might not be as good in my opinion as the first film, but I still think it's an amazing sequel nonetheless. And when I saw it, my mind was once again blown, because there was lots of awesome action scenes for its time, which in my opinion were really well done, and a great story which helped to continue on from the first film. Because personally, I don't think we should have ended the story with just the first film, because the ending, of course, was clearly setting up Neo to be becoming the hero who would stop the war between the machines and the human resistance, because he makes a promise by a phone call to the machines that he will stop them and show them a world of peace and freedom. So right there, that was a setup for more to come. Which is why I personally accept the existence of the first 2 sequels, including this one, Reloaded. I think Reloaded is just really awesome, and in my opinion, a very underrated film. And then we get to what is, in my opinion, the true conclusion of a franchise, and in my opinion, an underrated conclusion, because sadly this film got negative reviews, but I still enjoy it nonetheless, which is The Matrix Revolutions. Now, sure, it might be, in my opinion, slightly weaker than the first 2 films, yes, but I still think it is, in my opinion, an underrated film, and for me, an underrated conclusion, if you will. Because, like I said, this to me is the end of the franchise, because it helps to wrap up many of the elements from the first 2 films really well, in my opinion. I mean, there are things I didn't like about it. For example, the way it handled Trinity in the film, I personally did not like that. And I feel that The Matrix itself and Agent Smith, in my opinion, deserve more screen time. But nonetheless, I think it's a good film, in my opinion. I still enjoy it to this day. And if you guys want to hear my full thoughts on the 3 films, then please check out my reviews for them, which I filmed back in 2022, and I showed pure love for those films, especially the first movie. And I even as well think the franchise has video games, which in my opinion are much better than what we're getting today for a Matrix franchise, because when I was really young and really into the films, I also as well played the video game, The Matrix Path of Neo, on the original Xbox, back when I used to have that console, but I don't anymore now because it got sold. And I definitely really love that game. And in my opinion, that's a massive example of an old video game, which is much better than games we're getting today, in my opinion. Because it was a really awesome retelling of the first 3 films, but from Neo's point of view, and it added new parts to them, which I thought was really cool. And it was just, in my opinion, tons of fun to play. Which is why, recently, when I got a PS2, I was able to re-get the game on PS2. So, here it is, and I've been playing it recently, and it's been so much fun going down memory lane, and I gotta say that in the training parts of the game, I'm getting better at it, which is really good, and so I'm happy about that. And I can't wait to play more of this in the future because it's a great game. In my opinion, my favourite Matrix game of all time. However, unfortunately, despite the Matrix Revolutions, in my opinion, having a really good ending, which in my opinion was the true end of the franchise, we sadly got a sequel somehow. And this sequel was, in my opinion, released far too late. I think it was like 18 years after Revolutions in 2021. Which is why I say I think all's better than what we're getting today in terms of what we got, which would be 3 years ago this year, of course, in 2024. And this abomination was none other than 2021's The Matrix Resurrections. And if you guys want to see my rant where I absolutely destroy that movie, then please go check it out. It's an angry one that I posted on the day that I saw it. So, when I, of course, watched that film, I did not see it at the cinemas because I was really concerned about it. Because as they released more and more trailers and TV spots for the film, I watched them and I noticed lots of things that made me really concerned. Like, one thing with trailers included which made me a lot more concerned than I was when we first announced it, was that they recasted Morpheus and Agent Smith. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, there is no one I would cast other than Lawrence Fishburne and Hugo Weaving as those two characters. Because, in my opinion, Lawrence and Hugo are irreplaceable as Morpheus and Agent Smith. As far as I'm concerned, no one could play the Oswald better than them. And in my opinion, the recasts was a very bad move, especially because the characters felt nothing like the characters at all. In my opinion, they're fake versions of them. That's why I call them fake Morpheus and fake Smith, because that's not the characters in my opinion. And Resurrections did so many mistakes, so many of them. And when I've looked back at the film many times in my life since I first saw it, I've unfortunately hated it more and more because it's an absolute joke. And for me, it's a full-on 0 out of 10 now because I think it's absolute garbage. And one of those examples of a film which, in my opinion, there's nothing good about it. Like, what breaks my heart is my favourite actor, Keanu Reeves, came back as Neo for his film, but unfortunately, not even he, in my opinion, could save the film because they gave him an absolutely horrendous script to work with, and I felt so bad for him, and for Carrie-Anne Moss and the others who came back, and pretty much the whole cast who is in the film. I feel so bad for all of them having to go through that garbage. And when it comes to why I think the trilogy of the films is better than Resurrections, it's for loads of reasons. So, for example, in my opinion, much better acting than Resurrections, because the acting in Resurrection was just so downgraded, in my opinion, compared to the absolutely phenomenal acting from the trilogy, in my opinion. Like, what happened? And also, as well, the story, in my opinion, was also, in my opinion, much better in the trilogy. Because what makes Resurrections, as I nickname Pissurrections, so bad is it's literally a soulless, lifeless, boring and dreadful remake of the first movie. Like, there's so many plot points it includes which from the first film, which I easily spotted when I saw the film. And it made me hate it a lot more and more. So it doesn't try anything new whatsoever. And what's also, in my opinion, so bad is it's really appalling to me as well how even the dialogue in the trilogy is better than Pissurrections, in my opinion. Like, because Pissurrections, in my opinion, despite being a theatrically released film, feels like it was a made-for-television movie, you know, like direct-to-video, that sort of thing. It literally feels like, in terms of the dialogue being written, and also as well, I must also say the visual quality, because compared to what is, in my opinion, the absolutely stunning visuals of this trilogy has when I watch it, because I rewatch these films a lot, the visual quality in Pissurrections, in my opinion, is just god-awful and just absolutely embarrassing to look at, especially with CGI. Like, I just can't believe the CGI in the trilogy is 10 times better. Now, sure, it might not have been good compared to standards of, you know, other films by any means, but I think for its time, in the 90s and 2000 and the early 2000s, it was great CGI for its time. Great. Compared to what we got in Pissurrections. The CGI in Pissurrections is, in my opinion, much worse. Like, I really don't know what happened at all. Like, that's just, in my opinion, absolutely embarrassing. Like, what happened? Yeah, Pissurrections, in my opinion, was an absolute joke. And in my opinion, it was also badly paced because it got so boring and, like, was just, in my opinion, horrendous. And it's also, as well, in my opinion, ruined the characters who I loved. For example, it turned Neo, who's one of my favourite cinematic heroes of all time, into an absolute coward. No longer the Neo I know, just literally like a John Wick lookalike who's an absolute coward. Which is just so ridiculous how he did that to one of my favourite characters of all time. And also, as well, getting rid of his powers too, as well, for some reason. Like, he's no longer the absolute badass that I loved in the trilogy, who was fantastically developed, in my opinion. And Trinity, in my opinion, was also ruined because not only is she badly underused in the film, but also, as well, she somehow gets powers out of nowhere. So it basically turned into a Mary Sue. And that really annoyed me, how she somehow gets the ability to fly. Like, oh my god, that's just embarrassing. And also, as well, a really bad villain to being the Analyst. Now, I like Neil Patrick Harris as an actor, but the Analyst, in my opinion, was a horrible villain. Just so terrible, in my opinion. And they didn't even, like, give any hints to him being a villain before he was revealed as a villain. Which is just so stupid. Like, I just can't believe the trilogy has a much better villain than him being Agent Smith. Like, Smith, in my opinion, is the best Matrix villain of all time. And in my opinion, one of the greatest cinematic villains of all time. And speaking of Smith, his recasting in this film, in my opinion, was horrible. And it also makes his defeat in Revolutions pointless too, as well. And also, because he escapes too. And the film has a very dumb sequel-baiting ending, of course, where Neo and Trinity simply thank Analyst for giving him another chance to live. And then they fly off into a sunset dancing. And it looks like they're about to, like, shape the Matrix into how they want now. So it looks like it was sequel-baiting for a fifth film. But thankfully, since then, there's been no confirmation of a fifth film. And you know what? Good riddance, because I like to pretend I live in a world where there's only the trilogy that exists for me, just the trilogy alone. And when it comes to video game territory, of course, Path of Neo is my favourite Matrix game. Hopefully one day I'll probably get Enter Matrix, hopefully, because I heard great things about that game from what I've seen of it. As well, it looks like a really fun game too, so hopefully I can get that one day too to play. Because I'll definitely rather play that over Resurrections, rewatching that any day, absolutely. There's no way we're going to rewatch Resurrections again, because in my opinion, it's a total joke compared to the amazing trilogy that I really love. So, long story short, guys, this is me, of course, doing in my video on why I personally think The Matrix was much better in the old than it is in terms of new. So, you know the drill, guys. Be sure to give this video a like. Also, be sure to tell us in the comments what you guys think of The Matrix. Do you think old better than new when it comes to The Matrix? Also, be sure to join Team Prime by pressing the subscribe moves to come in the future. And free your mind.